my Philadelphia Eagles and the number 2 seed
Well, then
in the
I'm gonna officially
NFC.
put down as because I don't have an upset. I was going to, but I'll explain why I don't. But I'm gonna pick Ravens blowing out the Steelers.
Ooh, okay. The next game we are talking about, my number 2 Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC, the number 2 seed playing the Green Bay Packers, the number 7 seed in the NFC in Philadelphia. Who you got in
So
this one, Casino?
this is where I hear most of the upset alert
Yeah.
is Packers Eagles, and I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not gonna buy it. The Packers are a good team. Their defense is outstanding. However, the Eagles are just too damn good. They're just too damn good. And it might be a really close game. And I think the -5.5 is pretty fair, but pretty fair point here. But man, I am going to stick with the Eagles because you have Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, who were both dealing with close to the MVPs. Saquon still finishing third. Yeah.
And if it wasn't a
You
quarterback.
continue. My neighbor's calling me. I got to answer. So you continue.
Yeah, and also if it wasn't a only quarterback award, Saquon Barkley would probably win. But again, I've also, much like Casino said, heard all the talks about the Packers upset over the Eagles, much like the Broncos over the Bills. At least with the Broncos, you can make the case where it's like, oh, well, the Broncos have a better defense than the Bills, so they're better on half the side of the ball. Like, you can make a case defense wins championships and all this kind of stuff.
That's fair.
When it comes to Packers Eagles, name something the Packers do better than the Eagles,
Yeah. There's nothing.
because they don't do any of it. And also, or people will say like, well, Jordan Love's a better passer than Jalen Hurts, which
I
might
don't
be
agree with that.
true.
I don't
Well,
agree with it.
but even if it is true, you still have the added mobility of Jalen Hurts, which, in my opinion, makes him a better quarterback, especially in the playoffs, because now he's a dual threat quarterback.
Right.
Jordan
And
Love,
talking about Jordan Love, he's still a little banged up from the previous game. So we'll see how that plays on out.
well,
Um,
also, so is Jordan Reed. So
and
their
so is
number
Jordan Reed.
one pass
Yes.
option and their quarterback are banged up.
I mean, and
Hurts
we
has
know that
been,
Hurts coming back from his concussion. He hasn't played, so that's a little iffy and weary. But he doesn't have to play outstanding because he could still give the ball off to Saquon Barkley, and Barkley can basically win him this game. And
yeah.
you get Jalen Hurts out there and just get some reps in, kind of situation. So, I yes, the Packers defense is young and good, and I like them a lot, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley for an entire game. There'll be a couple that Saquon breaks off that's going to be the game changers. So I think the 5.5 is pretty spot on. I think it's going to be a close game. I do like the Packers a lot, but they're going to do what they do all season long, where they are this close to beating the good teams, but they just can't get it done because the other teams are just better.
Yeah, every Packers loss this season, they lost by 5 points week 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost by 3 points in week 4 to the Vikings. They beat the Rams in week 5, which is the only playoff team they've beaten all season. And then they they also beat the Houston Texans by 2. So the two teams they beat were the Rams and the Texans. They lost by 10 in week 9 to the Lions. They lost by 3 points in week 14 to that same Lions team. And then they lost by 2 points against the Vikings in week 17. So they are what? They lost every division game, or they won one division game in the NFC North because they split with the Bears.
Yeah,
They
and they
lost
could have lost all
twice.
of them. They could have
Yeah.
lost all of them because
Oh,
that first one they barely won against the Bears.
yeah, the first Bears game they won by 1 point. So they were potentially almost winless in their own division.
Which is insane, and they still finished 11-6.
Well,
What?
also they have not, their last win against a playoff team was week 7. And that was all the way back in October. So they have not beat a good team since October. It is now January. They have not beaten a team since 2024, Casino. And I know we're only 10 days into the new year, but I still had to
Again,
throw that in.
they're such a good team, but they just can't beat the elite. So I know I was saying the Chargers are the best team that can't win a Super Bowl. The Packers are probably the best team that just can't win the Super Bowl because they can't beat one of those top 4 teams.
The Super Bowl of 2 teams that can't win the Super Bowl in these playoffs would probably be Packers versus Chargers in the NFC and AFC.
That would be great. That'd be a great game.
If that
Tight
is
game.
the Super Bowl, we get partial credit for mentioning that as a matchup right here. But yeah, I think again, the question mark going into this game is kind of, but it's been more talked about where it's the health of the 2 quarterbacks, but everybody just seems to just be brushing the Love injury aside and hyper focusing on the Jalen Hurts one.
And that's
Even
fine.
though-
Hyper focus on the Jalen Hurts one. Guess what? Jordan Love does not have Saquon Barkley.
Well, he also, again, if he's missing his wide receiver, their wide receiver group is already thin as it is because it's filled with guys who on most teams are the second or third option outside of Jordan Reed.
Right.
So
and with that being said, again, we love Josh Jacobs. We do. I think Josh Jacobs is having an outstanding season. Everything goes through Josh Jacobs, I think, more than Love. You've mentioned that before, and I agree with you. But that Josh Jacobs is not Saquon Barkley. It's just what it is. So the Eagles are going to get it done. I think we can move on to the next game. We're both picking the Eagles.
I agree. And I also am agreeing with you where I think the Jalen Hurts injury aspect of it has been blown way out of proportion. Again, he was injured 3 weeks
he hasn't played
ago.
for a while. That's why.
Yeah. So I think he's out of concussion protocol and has been for a while. And they were kind of just babying him to make sure he was good to go for the playoffs. So I think, again, if you're doing prop bets or anything like that, this is a heavy Saquon Barkley game and probably a heavy, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith just on quick slants and then them going to the house because obviously you don't want Hurts taking shots. But I think this will be, again, very similar to their week 1 game, which is a close game that, again, leads to the Eagles pulling away at the end. I think, again, this is going to be a rough first half of the game and a second half that will be pretty much all Eagles until they get the victory.